Alabama. Preseason, over under 9.5 wins. Will, tell me if you're taking the over, you're taking the under in Kalen DeBoer's second year, and maybe a reason why you're going that way.
So looking at the schedule before we really dive into this roster, I think you'll be surprised, but I think I'm leaning toward that over right there. I think I see 10 wins on this schedule. They certainly have some tough ones and some tough ones on the road, but I think they've got enough there to get the job done. You want to start with going through the schedule, or how do you want to go about this?
Just I guess we don't have to go through the whole schedule. Just I guess highlight some of the key games they've got on there.
Yeah.
Obviously, week
So
1 against Florida
week
State.
one, yeah, week 1 against Florida State. I mean, when you're talking about 9.5 wins and you're putting your money on that on the over, you need every game, right? And this is really a tricky one, week 1. And we'll talk more about what Alabama did in the portal. This is interesting because the guy that has kind of owned Alabama coaches at Florida State now as the offensive coordinator, Gus Malzahn. So, he's not going to be intimidated by that script A. And he knows how to beat this program. Obviously, much different with Kalen DeBoer in charge instead of Nick Saban. But I think it's interesting because Florida State's going to be a lot different. We'll talk about them on Wednesday night, but it's an interesting game. They'll finish up the home and home with Wisconsin this year. I think that should be a win. They go on the road to Georgia, which will obviously be tough. Go on the road to South Carolina, and then they go on the road to Auburn. And we know the Iron Bowl can be spooky, especially for Alabama heading to Auburn.
Yeah.
Crazy things happen there. But the big thing that jumps off me at the schedule, kind of being the Auburn fan and the Alabama hater that I am, it's kind of soft that their Alabama's 2 bye weeks are before Georgia and before LSU. That's if they're coming off bye weeks and losing those games, I'm going to have a field day on our Monday night shows during the season.
I'll add to this. Traditionally, they typically always have that bye week before LSU. That's one thing I've learned down here.
Yes.
LSU takes the bye week before Alabama. That second weekend in November typically. The one thing that's crucial there is obviously with them kind of playing Georgia more often now in Alabama. It feels like I don't know when they typically had it, but I guess where that schedule kind of sits, like 3 games in a bye week kind of seems pretty early to me, like in terms of when you get it. I would have rather seen it maybe if I was an Alabama fan. I would have rather like switched the Vandy game in my bye week and had the bye week right before Tennessee, and like maybe got a bye week and then 2 games, then another bye week. I don't know. It's interesting, but Alabama's schedule, to your point, 9.5 wins. Like when you're talking about in the betting industry, 9.5 wins is tricky because it's one of those things where the Crimson Tide, in my opinion, they've got a scenario to me where we don't really know what that offense is going to look like. You have Ryan Grubb, right? And we can kind of take this conversation into the roster now, Will, because you have the guy that Kalen DeBoer originally wanted to be the OC. That's kind of a storyline that a lot of Alabama fans are kind of hinging on because it's kind of a scenario where really kind of disappointing in terms of last year, obviously below their standards for what they want. But you've got something kind of put hope into, new quarterback and kind of the OC that DeBoer really originally wanted. That also being said, I still think their defense is really going to be good. Like, I think defensively, Alabama's not going to be far off from who they usually are. The big question mark for me here is, and I'm guessing you're taking the over on 9.5 wins?
Yeah, I'm taking the over on 9.5 wins.
So the question mark is that quarterback position. I was talking with someone the other day that is close to the Ty Simpson family, and they were kind of talking about that there was some uneasiness because I know you've read a lot too, and we've all talked about this. Like Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeBoer didn't necessarily have a big coming out party in terms of naming Simpson the quarterback. This was something that was more kind of, it's a battle, it's a battle. I think a lot of that was done to kind of keep everybody happy through the spring portal cycle. Then they say, yeah, if we were playing today, Ty Simpson would be the quarterback. If that works, I'm cool with the 9.5. But if it doesn't, I like some of the options they have, man. But I just think, I don't know. That makes me nervous. 9.5 is a lot. I'm going to actually, I'm taking the under because I will say this. I think they lose at
It's
Georgia.
a lot.
And I think this LSU team's got a pretty good shot to beat them in Tuscaloosa. So that's 2 losses right there. if you don't have your quarterback situation figured out, you could very well hiccup somewhere else.
Early in the year. Let's not talk about that last game. But talking about their quarterback position, you've heard me say it many times. I'm just kind of sitting around waiting on DeBoer and Ryan Grubb to name their guy, their star quarterback that they recruited to Washington, and DeBoer talked into transferring to Alabama with him and Austin Mack. I've just kind of been sitting around waiting on them to name him as the starter. So it's been really interesting to me to see them kind of sticking with Ty Simpson's not the right word because he hasn't started yet. Obviously, he's highly touted. Was he a 5-star recruit?
4-star at least.
4-star. I mean, highly recruited guy. Obviously, a lot of talent there, but I just kind of thought with Austin Mack kind of being their guy. I mean, he was the next in line at Washington behind Michael Penix.
Mm-hmm.
That he would kind of take over at Alabama, but we'll have to wait and see.
We talked about a little bit defensively. What do you like about this group? I think they've got some really good weapons. I think they're going to be pretty disruptive. I think this is a season that really could be predicated on your defense going to have to win you the close games, because I don't know if this offense can win you the close games quite yet, especially early in the season. They got to go out and dominate defensively. Maybe that offense develops as the year goes along, but I guess kind of to round it out, maybe your thoughts defensively about the group.
Their big addition in the portal was Kelby Collins, defensive lineman from Florida. Kind of anchor that defensive line. I think he's going to be able to. He's going to be the guy causing a lot of the disruption up front for them on that defensive line. He did it. He did a great job of that at Florida. If he can step in and do that for Alabama, that's where good defense starts, is up front. And if he's your anchor in the middle, you got a pretty good one there. And then on the back end, they brought in Cameron Calhoun from Utah, cornerback, to probably be their number one cornerback. I mean, he was a 4-star transfer by 24/7. So, they added some talent. They lost a lot in the portal, but on the defensive side, it's not a ton of guys that played all that much. Jaheim Otis and Damon Payne on that defensive line, big losses, but they get one guy back with Kelby Collins coming from Florida, but this is the era we're in. It's going to be new faces for everybody. And the big thing for Alabama, they brought in talent, or similar level talent than what went out the door. You're muted.
I said I was going to say, shout out to the wife. She just brought me a bottle of water while we were doing that, because I was about to get a little choked up talking about what Jackford's saying down there. The first non-Saban quarterback, Johnny, pandering to the Auburn fan on the show. Bama under and DeBum gets fired, he says. Real quick, let me take a sip here. One strength they do have, I think, is the offensive line. Caden Proctor, kind of a guy that a lot of people feel like going to be a top 10 pick. Parker Brailsford, another really solid player they've got on the line. They kind of figure that out. That's going to help whoever is at the quarterback position. Wide receiver, you're going to have some weapons to throw to. We don't need to talk about the now 18-year-old receiver from Saraland that they have. Everyone knows him pretty well, I think, at this point. But no, I'm going to.
And they brought in Isaiah Horton from Miami.
Yeah, Isaiah Horton's also a really good weapon. I like Alabama's team. Hear me out this, because not a lot of people in the live show are going to see this. When we cut this up, this is where we know a lot of the fan base has kind of hit the 8 and 10 minute clips. Will's taking Alabama in the over. He's the noted Auburn fan. I'm taking Alabama in the under. I think 9-3 again, and we'll see what that does. So that's the Alabama Crimson Tide. Any lasting thoughts?
Winning 10 games is very, very hard. So I think that says a lot about where I think that they're at.
Yeah.
Because that to me is winning all the games they should win and losing one or one more that they maybe shouldn't lose.